Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is Sandy. We're going to get started here in just a second. Hope everybody's doing okay today. All right, let's see here if I can get to the right screen. Here we go. Okay, I'm seeing Candace and Catherine, Christy. Hey Christy. And Joanne. Hi Joanne. This is awesome. Glad you guys are here. Okay, do me a favor before we get started. I want to make sure that you can hear okay and that you can see what I've got on the screen. It says nail your power talk. So if you can hear me okay and see, would you type into the question box and let me know that all is well? Looks like Amy has joined us. Hey Amy. All right, perfect. Christy, Catherine, Joanne, and Amy, everybody's saying all is well. Good, 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 good. All righty. Hope everybody's having a really good day. It's a really weird day here for me. I got all kinds of unexpected just issues popping up today. And hopefully this will all be smooth sailing with the technology on the webinar today. I don't want any more weirdness. All right, we are going to be talking today about speaking, going out and doing speaking gigs, doing presentations. And if you didn't grab the handouts, I did have some handouts. I think Kristen sent them out this morning with the webinar reminder. There's, I think, about 3 or 4 pages, and we're going to be referring to those as we go. I'll show you a few things about those today. Why speaking? Why in the world are we talking about this? I believe that being able to go out and talk to groups like Rotary clubs or church groups or school groups, it's a really good way to spread the word about your organization. It's a really good way to raise awareness. It's a really good way to find new donors. So if you've heard me talk about ideal donor profile, you know that when you get really clear about who you're looking for, it's really easy to then find the right donors for your organization. It's also a really efficient way to reach a lot of people. So instead of talking to people one-on-one, you talk to them one-to-many, right? Think about if you had to bring in new donors to your organization by getting face-to-face and talking to people one at a time, that would take a while. And when you can go speak to a Rotary Club of, let's say, 30 people, and that's, first of all, it's a very efficient use of your time, and you can get 10 or 15 or 20 of them to sign up to support your organization or to volunteer or get involved in some other way. That's a really, really good use of your time. So that's why we're here. That's what we're talking about today, is speaking. And I'm going to give you some of my ninja tips, and I'm going to share with you some stories about how I got started. Now, let me just go ahead and say, I know that some of you are thinking, yeah, Sandy, but this is easy for you because you do this all the time. Yes, I do. I laugh with people that there's a couple of topics that you could literally wake me up in the middle of the night and say, we need you to do this presentation right now. And as soon as I could get my eyes open, I could do it. They've just got them so ingrained, and I'm so used to speaking, but here's what you need to know. I have not always been a good speaker. I have not. This is not something that 20 years ago when I first started in fundraising, I was not good at this, and it made me very nervous. And I bet that is that's your story too. That when you think about going out to speak, your palms sweat and your heart races and your throat seems to get kind of thick and your mouth gets really dry, and it's very nerve-wracking. And you know what? I found a couple of things. The more that I did it, the easier it got. And then also there were a few things that once I really got them in place, everything got easier. And that's part of what I want to share with you today. So this is not theory out of some textbook. I'm going to share with you today things that I learned the hard way and figured out what worked based on the results that I was getting when I went out to speak. So in other words, when I went out to speak and I could get 70, 80, 90, 100% of the room to give me their name and email, and I could get donations and invitations to go speak again, to me, that was some big success. So clearly some of these tips work. So that's what I want to share with you. I don't want you to have to do this the hard way. because I know this is like fundraising is hard enough as it is, and speaking is hard enough without everything else. So let's find a way to make this easier. Get 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 your stage fright handled if you do have any. And I want to go ahead and share one tip right off the bat, so kind of right out of the gate here. Something that I used to do, and this serves me very well every time. And honestly, now, like we have the Inspired Fundraising Retreat coming up August 9th and 10th, which, by the way, if you don't have a ticket, you should probably be looking at that. I think about that, and sometimes I get really nervous about it. Yes, I do. Even though I've done this a lot, I still can get nervous. And what I do is this. I really think about why I'm doing it. I get really, really clear and in touch with my why. And I used to do this as well when I worked at the food bank, and I would go out and speak to Rotary clubs. It was really easy to get in my head and talk about all our programs and all the facts about the organization. And it's so much easier when you get in touch with why you do it. I would go sit on the front lines of the organization and remind myself why we're doing what we're doing and why it matters. And that really helped calm down a lot of my butterflies. I still do that. I think about who I'm trying to help and why it matters to me. And somehow that seems to give me a lot of courage and strength, and at least puts my head in the right space so that I'm coming from the right place to be of service. And I think you can do the same thing. The truth is, your presentation does not have to be perfect, but it does need to be authentic. Does not have to be perfect, but it does need to be authentic, particularly for those of you who are founders of your organization. When you can speak from your heart, and I guess truly, if you're not a founder, if you can speak from your heart about why your services are needed, why the organization needs to be able to do what it does, eliminate a waiting list, address a problem, whatever it is you're trying to do, when you can speak from that space, it's contagious. Your passion can flare up in other people, and they get really excited about what you're doing, and they want to help too. See, this is why I think this is such a good idea to go out and speak and reach people this way. All right. Oh, I'm getting on my soapbox here. This is some fun stuff today. Okay, we're going to look at several things today. I want to show you some practical, tactical pieces. I'm going to talk about what audiences you need to be talking to, and I'm going to give you some suggestions, and there's actually some in the handouts. We're going to talk about promoting yourself, which I know is not everybody's favorite thing. We're going to talk about a talk structure, and this is critical. So probably in about 15, 20 minutes or so, 25, we're going to start talking about the talk structure, and that is the critical piece of this. You've got to get the structure right. You got to make sure that you've got the language the way it needs to be so that it is engaging. All of you have sat through a talk with somebody who obviously does not care about their audience. They are very boring. Everything they say is we, us, and nobody cares about that. I'm going to show you how to make sure that you don't leave empty-handed so that you can get as many names and emails as you possibly can. And then I got some tips for you to make this more interesting and exciting for your audience. So that's where we're going today. A lot of good stuff. If you don't have something to take notes with, you better grab something because I've got a lot coming your way starting now. All right, let's talk about the practical, tactical part of doing a presentation. The first is you got to find the right speaking gigs. You definitely don't want to speak everywhere. Although in the beginning, if you're new to speaking or if your organization is new, going out to speak at every opportunity can be your training ground. I remember speaking to the Accountants Association, and that did not necessarily turn into many donations, but it was good practice for me. And the Architects Association and the HR Association in town. And there's a lot of groups you can go talk to, and it gives you a place to practice, and that's a good thing. But you definitely want to find the right gigs, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. You have to be able to promote yourself. And if you feel really uncomfortable about that, then promote your talk. Promote what you're going to be able to talk about. So if you don't want to go like, hey, I'm a great speaker, invite me to come to your Rotary Club, you can say, if you want to learn more about how to fight hunger and poverty in our area, if you want to find out about how many people are struggling to put food on their table tonight, let me come and bring my talk the realities of hunger in East Tennessee, and I'll show you how to put all that together. So you do have to be able to promote yourself in some form or fashion. Then you want to rock your talk. And that looks like delivering a presentation that's captivating, that keeps people on the edge of their seat, that they don't fall asleep on you. And that's tough. That's a tough thing to do, is to make sure that, that nobody's nodding off in the middle of your presentation. And I'll give you some tips for that. You want to issue a concrete call to action. And this is honestly where I see a lot of people fail when they go out to speak. And that is, they talk and then they expect people to walk up and hand them a check or say, hey, I want to be on your list or whatever. And it doesn't work that way. You have to have a concrete call to action. And when you do that, you make it really easy for people to say yes to something. You'll get what you're looking for. We'll talk about that a little bit. All right, so let's dig in and define the audience. Who do you need to go out and talk to? Who's the right audience for you and your organization? Here's who I think you're looking for. I think everybody is looking for an audience that's community minded. And what I mean by that is they care about what's happening in the community. They care about others in the community. For some of you, you want to find somebody that like they can't stand to see suffering or neglect or abuse or whatever it is that your cause is. They want to make sure that those things are being taken care of in the community. They support charity work. You got to remember, there's a lot of people in your community that they don't give to charity. They might have a lot of money or they might not, but they don't care. So if they're very selfish that way, you're not looking for them. Typically, and I always start with Rotary clubs, so may as well talk about Rotary now. Rotary clubs tend to be made up of people who are very community minded. They care about their community. They want a better community. And most Rotary members are donors to one organization or another. So that's why I love Rotary. I think it's a great place to start. And if you're in a community like mine in the greater Knoxville area, like within easily a 45-minute drive to an hour, I could probably get to about 8 or 10 different Rotary clubs from where I am, just because they have them in lots of communities. And the nice thing is, and I certainly found this out when I was at the food bank, I went to speak to one Rotary club, and out of 30 or 40 people, there'd be 5 or 6 who were making up a meeting. They belong to another what do they call them? Another chapter, another group. And they were there making their meeting up, and they would say, oh my gosh, you're great. Can you come speak to our Rotary club? And so the word of mouth kind of spread really fast that way, because they're always looking for somebody to come speak, right? They meet every week and they need a speaker every week. And so there's an opportunity for you to get in and address their group. You're also looking for audience members who have resources to give, whether that's time, money, in-kind donation, connections to other places, or maybe something else. So they've got something that they can share that's of value to you. So when you go out and speak, you can think of it this way. It's like a value exchange. You're giving them a presentation that's educational, inspirational, motivational, and of course, they're giving you their attention, but maybe they have something else they can give as well. All right. As always, if any of this doesn't make sense, the question box is open. So feel free to type your questions in. I'll keep an eye on this as we go. Okay, so what are the right gigs? Let's dig into that a little bit more. So once you define your audience, you're looking for community-minded people who support charity work. They've got resources to give. Where do we find them besides Rotary? So you might find them at a lot of places, and you've got a handout that kind of mirrors this slide if you want to follow down that handout. Personal referrals. Now, this is as easy as just asking people, hey, do you belong to a group or a Sunday school class or any kind of gathering of people who bring in guest speakers? That could be as easy as you posting on your Facebook page and saying, hey, I'm looking for speaking gigs. What do you know about? Ask your organization's friends. So this might look like putting a little something on your organization's Facebook page or in your newsletter that says, invite us to speak. We're looking for opportunities to spread the word about our work. Contact me and give them your email address if you want more details. That's an easy way to start finding some speaking gigs. And the truth is, if somebody is already following your Facebook page or they're on your newsletter list, they already care about your organization, and they're probably going to be connected to other organizations that would be a really good fit for you. Your local chamber of commerce might know about different organizations in your community and might be able to connect you, or they might have opportunities for you to speak. You just never know, but it's a good place, especially if you're a chamber member. Check it out. Meetup.com can be a really cool place to find opportunities to speak, especially if you're in a bigger location. If you've got a good sized city close by, like I probably wouldn't find much for Meetup in my little tiny town of Loudon, Tennessee, but in Knoxville, which is a half hour down the road, there's a lot of Meetup groups. So once I have my audience clearly defined, then I can start to think about where am I going to find these groups. So let me give you an example. One of my clients right now is African Library Project. They set up libraries in villages in Africa, and the libraries are all English books, like they're books that are written in English. So kids books, ABC books, chapter books, all kinds of books for first graders through eighth graders or whatever. And the point of that is, just the backstory, is that a lot of kids in Africa can't get into higher education. They can't go to high school or university if they can't read and write English. Well, a lot of the villages don't have books written in English, so they coordinate book drives, and people collect books and they ship them over there, and they establish libraries, and it's a very cool thing. All right, so we start this exercise and we're thinking about, okay, how do we build their donor base? Who are we looking for? We're looking for largely women who cannot stand suffering. They don't like to see children, the elderly, or animals suffering in any way. And they probably like books. They value books and stories and so forth. And so we got on Meetup and we found, they're based in San Francisco, we found book clubs by the scores in the San Francisco area. Women book clubs, and they're like, some of them are like real specific, like African American women professionals book club. And I'm like, oh snap, you got to go talk to these ladies, because that's exactly who you're looking for. So we were able to first define the audience and then use Meetup to go find all these opportunities with these book clubs. So what we're doing now is developing a strategy. We've put together a flyer that they're going to email out to the coordinators of these book clubs to say, hey, can we come do a 5-minute presentation on African Library Project? Here's just a tiny bit about us. So we've put this introduction kind of thing together, and then we were putting their talk together and the handout that they're going to share and all that. And so they're going to be launching that this summer. We're very excited to see how that works. It should work. Like if they can go do this really tiny presentation, it's like literally just a 5-minute presentation, they should be able to get all kinds of new people out of it. Doesn't that make sense to you? It makes a lot of sense to me. Civic clubs like Rotary. Here we have Civitan, Ruritan, Kiwanis, Sertoma. We have a lot of different kind of civic clubs here, and almost all of them. Lions clubs is another one. A lot of them have weekly meetings and they need programs. So those are pretty easy to find. And normally you can find those through your local chamber of commerce. They usually have a list of those, or sometimes your local library will have that list. Church groups are another really good one, just depending on your organization. For those of you who have faith-based organizations, or organizations that are maybe not faith-based, but they're biblical in nature, like Christy, I'm thinking about you with the food pantry. When I worked at the food bank, it was not a faith-based organization, but the work that we did was biblical in nature. So it was really easy. That was a very easy transition for us to go speak at a church and talk about, wow, we're feeding the hungry. That was not a leap at all. And then professional organizations. I mentioned earlier that I've spoken at the accountants group, the architects group. There's so many of those, and depending on your organization, it might be a really good fit for you to go out and do a presentation for those groups. Okay, Candace got a question. Candace is liking the Meetup example. She can see how to use it for her organization, Women Interested in STEM. Yes. Candace, look and see, because you're because of where you are, you're in Charlotte. I bet you can find like women engineers, that would be a slam dunk for you. Yeah, women accountants, and it doesn't necessarily have to be women, but I'm gonna guess you're gonna do really well if you can find women in a profession that has something to do with STEM. That should be a slam dunk for you as far as the right group. That should just be like, whew, easy. Totally makes sense. Good deal. Yeah, meetup is something that funny. It wasn't when I was doing speaking. It was not a thing, but it is now. And if you run a city of any size at all, you can probably find a few things. Like I said, I'm not going to find anything in Loudon, Tennessee, but I'm going to find a lot in Knoxville, and that's close enough. Okay, the next thing you have to do once you find those gigs is you have to promote yourself. So I remember for me, when I was first doing this, I was able to go to the local library in Knoxville, and they had a list of all the clubs in the Knoxville area. And it was like a 5-page list. It was a long list, but it had things like the Construction Association. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going out to speak to the Construction Association. Although I don't know, I guess maybe I could. There were some on there that I was like, I don't think that's the right fit. But there were plenty on there that was the right fit. And once I identified the ones I wanted to talk to, I said, wow, now what do I do? I'm going to have to reach out to them somehow. And so I had to figure out how I was going to reach out and what I was going to say. And if some of you are like me, the idea of picking up the phone and calling some of them was not something that I really wanted to do. I'm still not the best to cold call somebody. To pick up the phone and call somebody and go, hey, you don't know me, but you need to know me because I'm going to be able to help you with XYZ. That is not me. That is not who I am. And so what I did then, and I'm going to show you how to do now, is I created a flyer that I was able, actually back then I mailed it. I literally mailed the flyer to the address of the program person for, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 organizations in the greater Knoxville area. And it worked. That helped me get started. So one of the things that I'm a big proponent of now is for you to have what we call a speaker one sheet. So I'm going to show you an example here. This is a speaker one sheet from one of my clients. Her name is Dawn Owens. She is the founder and director at the Link of Coleman County in Coleman, Alabama. And so Dawn put this together, and you can see it's got some real specific sections to it. Has her photo on it, and then has some speaking topics. And I think this is in your handouts as well. Let me flip over there real quick. And yes, it's in your handout, so you can probably read it just a little bit better. But you'll see it does list her speaking topics. So somebody is looking at this and they can go, oh, wow, she can come out and talk about casting vision. Okay, cool. Maybe that's what we want. Or overcoming addiction to approval. Wow. Actually, since she put this one sheet together, she has written a book. What is it called? But it's about approval addiction, and it's very cool. Very proud of her for writing this book. So then it also has a little section about her where it talks about who she is and how she started, blah, blah, blah. A little bit of what she calls praise for Dawn. So here's a couple of people who have said, oh, Dawn's an amazing speaker. You definitely should get her out to speak to your group. And then booking information. Now, one thing about Dawn, she's got a speaker's fee here, but she's a little bit different than what you might be doing because she's written this book and she has actually been out speaking and with her book and selling it. You might not do that. So your booking information might just say, hey, here's my phone number, here's my email. So almost this little paragraph down in the bottom right. Call or email to book me for your next meeting. And that's the whole thing. But I wanted you to at least see how she put it together so you could get an idea of what yours could look like. That is your speaker one sheet. When I did this, mine was so much simpler, and I literally had these things on it. I put the talk title, the talk description. So I made up some title, and I think it was something like The Realities of Hunger in East Tennessee. It was not juicy at all. I would recommend that you put a little time into a title, make it as juicy as possible, because the title is largely what people will, what will grab people and pull them in. It's what they become attracted to. And in order to book you, and your title also is going to be the thing that's going to motivate people to come to the meeting to hear you speak. So it's important to put a little bit of time into the title to make it juicy and interesting. Like the realities of hunger in East Tennessee, probably not the most exciting thing, but did it work? 20 years ago, it worked. Would it work today? Probably not. Your talk description needs to just be a paragraph or two. Keep it very short, but a paragraph or two that talks about what your talk is about and what you're gonna cover. Include your nonprofit's mission statement and, of course, all your nonprofit branding. So you'd want to have your organization's logo and your website and all that sort of stuff on there. A really short bio for you, and you saw how long Dawn's was. I would say 50 to 70 words. So it's not real long. It's a real short bio. So this is not the time for you to tell everything you've ever done. This is enough. You want to tell enough that you show that you are an expert. And then, of course, your photo. And as a reminder, if you start working on a speaker one sheet and you want some feedback on that, you can throw it in the Facebook group or email it to me and I'll get you some feedback. Help you put that together. Okay, once you get that done, you got your gigs lined, you picked out, you send your one sheet, you start lining them up. It is time to rock the talk. So when you get in front of people, how do you make it so that people get excited about what you're doing and they want to know more and they want to get involved and they want to give you money and all that cool stuff that you really want? How does that work? All right, a lot of it has to do with your talk structure. Most of it is about the structure, and then the rest of it is about how you deliver it. So you could take you can take any topic, and if you structure it correctly, you're going to be able to grab people's attention and keep it. And if you present it with a lot of energy and you make it sound like a lot of fun, you can do really well, and you'll become known in your community as a really great speaker. All right, the introduction is an important piece, and I think the talk structure is in your handouts as well. Let's just make sure. Yes. All right, so your introduction has to be briefly who you are and why you're there. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. Don't stand up and say, thanks so much for inviting me out today. This is great. I'm excited to be here. That's predictable. It's really predictable. I learned in a class one time, it was an opportunity for me to learn about adult learning styles and to learn how to be a good presenter. And what they said is, give the host of the meeting what you want them to say. So have it written down. Give them what you want them to say to introduce you. And then the minute you hit the stage, launch right into a story. So you can tell your story, and then you can briefly introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm Sandy, I'm from Second Harvest, and then you can go on from there. Amy's asking, what do you think about bringing multiple people to speak to share different perspectives? So, for example, the president says who we are, who we serve. The program director gives the primary talk. Development director shares the call to action. I guess you can do it that way. I would think that would become cumbersome if you need to grab all those people to get out to a lot of speaking gigs. That could become a scheduling difficulty, I would imagine. I think you could do it if you do it right. The thing that I find that's a little bit daunting is not everybody is a speaker. Not everybody's a good speaker. Some people get really focused on the inner workings of the organization, and so they use the word we too much. We do this and we do that, and that turns the audience off. So I think if your two other people are on the same page as you, Amy, and you have your game plan, you know your talk is carefully structured, I think you could make it work. I would not be a fan personally. When I was a development director, I just went out and I did it all myself. And that was okay. I was totally okay with that. Sometimes my director went out, just depending on what the talk was. Like if it was the big Rotary Club in town, she would go do it. And she knew a lot of people in the club, and that was fine. But if it was like the club that was 45 minutes outside of town, it was a smaller club, I'd go do it. Totally fine. Okay, on the introduction, the important thing is don't drag this out. So if you If you start talking about how your organization got started, you got to keep that super short. You can't go into like a crazy amount of detail. Amy says the 3-person perspective is her boss's suggestion. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Okay, be careful about going into too much detail on the history of your organization. You want to keep this really short. And I'll tell you, here's a ninja tip that I use that I teach other people to do, and I'm going to show you. Outline your talk using this structure, and then I want you to write down how much time you have for each section. So let's say you're going out to speak to Rotary. You normally have 20 or 25 minutes to speak. So if you have 20 or 25 minutes and you have about 7 or 8 things here, you got 7 things to share, you got to really think about, I have 4 minutes to spend on the introduction. So I have to introduce myself and tell my story, my opening story, and the history in 4 minutes. So that's not a lot of time. If you don't want to do the opening story, you can briefly stand up and say, I'm Sandy. I'm here from the food bank. We were started in 1982 because a group of concerned citizens realized that our neighbors were going hungry and they decided to do something about it. That's it. So you could have something that simple as far as your history. It could literally be why the organization was started, and then you move on. The second piece is what I call a whiplash statistic. A whiplash statistic is one thing that you can share that makes people go, whoa, really? Wow. Wow. At the food bank, I used to share that 1 out of every 4 children was going to go to bed hungry that night. I think it's 1 out of 3 now. And that's the kind of statistic you can share that people go, really? That happens here? Huh. But it's something interesting. It can be kind of quirky, but it grabs their attention and pulls them in. I don't know why that says 1 out of 3 kinds. That's a typo. Got it fixed there. Okay, then you go from your whiplash statistic into describing the need and the gap. So notice we're not talking about the programs you have. We're not going into your service area and all that because you really don't need to. Your tendency is to talk about the stuff you know. The stuff you know is how many programs and how many people you serve in your service area and accreditations you have, and all that kind of stuff. And that's really not what people are interested in. Your audience wants to know, who are you helping and why? So that's where you go talk about the need. So how many people need the services your nonprofit provides? Who are they? Why do they need help? And then talk about how many you're helping now so that you can show what the gap is. If you talk about the need and how many you're helping and basically subtract those two, it'll show you the gap, and that gives people context about your problem. So Candace's organization serves middle school girls, and if she says, there are 5,000 middle school girls who I would love to get excited about math, because if they don't get interested in the STEM topics, their prospects for careers are very limited. Their earning potential is very limited. And what we know already is if we can expose these girls to math and engineering and technology and science, we can engage them at the critical point, get them on that career path, and change the trajectory of their lives. So if she says there's 5,000 that would love to help, right now we're serving 50. Do we have a long way to go to provide service to all these girls? That puts some context in there. Amy's asking a good question. Should you focus on multiple needs or just one? Donations, volunteers, business partners. Best place to start if there are multiple needs. When you get to the call to action, that's really what that is. You want to keep it super simple. And actually, I'm going to show you in just a minute something that'll help answer that. Okay, so we start with the introduction. We go to the whiplash statistic, describe the need and the gap, and then that is the bulk of your talk, is the need and the gap. You can talk about how you help, and you want to take a 10,000-foot view here so you can keep it big picture. Don't get into too many details, not too many points. And here's where it's really tempting to start saying, well, let me tell you about all 6 of our programs. Programs get really confusing to people remember that you know your programs because you live and breathe them every day, but your audience is going to get really confused. So let me give you this example. When I was at the food bank, we probably had 6 or 8 different programs. We had our warehouse program with the cased food. We had a produce program. We picked up extra produce around town and used that to feed people. We had our prepared and perishable program. Are you hearing already all the jargon and how confusing this gets? Uh-huh. Yeah. So what you want to say instead of talking about all the programs, you say, look, we help make sure that people don't go to bed hungry. We do it in a lot of different ways. We have programs specific for kids, programs specific for the elderly. We have programs that rescue produce from grocery stores. We have programs that rescue leftover food from restaurants and caterers, and all of it goes to people who are struggling to feed their families. So if you take that sort of 10,000 foot view, you're not going too deep into the programs, but you can kind of touch on them in a way that people go, oh, that makes sense. From there, you want to talk about a before and after story of somebody whose life was changed. Now here, sometimes what I would do at the food bank is I may not talk about one specific person, but I would say, let me tell you about the typical person who is coming to a food pantry, because that I knew. And that worked as well. So I didn't have to say, let me tell you about Mark and Sarah and why they're coming to the Fountain City Presbyterian Church food pantry getting an emergency food box. I could say, let me tell you about the typical family that's coming. And then I could roll right into that story and all the details. And it was enough that people would be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. See, that's the issue with so many of our causes, is that there are things happening in our communities that the average person doesn't realize. They don't understand that folks are going hungry, or that their income potential is limited, or that they're disabled and they need services and there are not enough services available, or that they just need transportation to get to a kidney dialysis appointment, or whatever their organization is. There's just so many people that just don't realize what's going on. And so when you start telling that story, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was going on. The next thing you want to share is your organization's BHAG. If you don't know what a BHAG is, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. So if your BHAG is to eliminate a problem, if you want to completely eliminate hunger, homelessness, poverty, whatever it is in your community, you want to share that. If your goal is not quite that big, but it is, you want to, Candace, I'm thinking about you. If you said, wow, I want to just make sure that every girl in this school has access to our programs, or every girl in our school system, or every girl in this neighborhood. I mean, whatever it is, you can break it down into whatever piece you want, but share something so that people know what your goal is and what you're up to. A BHAG is so much more interesting than, well, we're just over here doing good work. People get excited about big, hairy, audacious goals. So once you share that, you talk about what we're trying to do and why, then you can invite them to help. This is your call to action. This is where you can say, now, if this has been interesting to you, if you're excited about our work and you want to take the next step, here's what you can do. What I like to have here is what I call a how you can help sheet that details the ways that they can help. So back to Amy's question of what should you ask for. Sometimes it depends on exactly what you need, but what I have found is if you've got a room full of about 20 different people, they've all got 20 different interests and 20 different priorities. And if you can offer them something that kind of meets everybody where they are, that's super helpful. Let me go back to the slides. You're going to see a sample how you can help sheet here in the handouts, but I'll go, let me go back to the slides here. Because we don't want you to leave empty-handed. That's the worst, is when you go, I worked with a speaking coach a couple of years ago, and she said the worst is when you go do a presentation, you leave everything on the stage, you give it the best you can, and people go, oh, that was so good. You did such a good job. But you don't get anything that you're looking for, and you want to be able to get what you're looking for. A how you can help sheet is a way to describe different ways that people can get involved. So this one is from Becky at Draft Gratitude, and you see the first thing is visit. Come see us. Come see us. For those of you with facilities, that's a really good thing to do, like schedule a tour or join us for an open house, whatever that is. Volunteer. You're going to have people in your audience who are interested in volunteering and maybe with their family. So if you have volunteer opportunities, put that on there. If there's family volunteer opportunities, put that on there. If volunteers need to be 14 or older, put that on there. Donate. That's another one you can put on there. Invite us to speak. Sponsor. So you can see Becky has a variety of sponsorship plans available. Call us to find out more, or collect feed tags. So for those of you not in the livestock world, horse feed and grain and some cattle feed and things, they come in these giant bags. They're like 40-pound bags, and they have tags on the side. And there's a couple of companies that, for nonprofits, they can collect the feed tags off of bags and send them in, and they get a donation. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. And at first I was like, really, you want to spend your time on that? But Becky gets several $100s a year just by people mailing her feed tags, and then she just sends them all in once a quarter, and takes her like 10 minutes, and she gets several $100s. So whatever, right? It works for her. It's great. And there may be something else for you. Now, you may have something different that you could put on how you can help sheep. And I actually have 2 more samples that I'll show you. I work with a lot of clients to help them put these together. This is from an animal rescue group out in the Los Angeles area. And you can see theirs is formatted just a little differently. Organization's called Priceless Pets, which is kind of cool. And theirs has visit us, adopt, donate, invite us to speak, monthly giving, and volunteer. So they have a lot of different things going on there, how you can help sheep. Now, here's what I really like about a sheet like this. So you're giving people a variety of ways that they can get involved. But think about this. Let's imagine that you have folks from your Rotary Club who they come to the meeting, they hear you speak, they're really excited, but oh my gosh, look at the time, it's 1 o'clock, and they got to hurry and go back to work, right? And by the time they go back to work and they get busy with the day and then they get home, they've forgotten what they were so excited about at lunch because they've been dealing with all the afternoon fires and the afternoon work, right? So when you give them this sheet, you can pass this around when you get to this part of your talk, or you can leave it on everybody's chair before you start your talk or whatever. Different ways you can do it, just depending on your audience and what you feel comfortable with. But you give them the sheet and they can take it with them. And then when they get home that night, they can look at it again and go, oh yeah, I wanted to look into going for a visit. Oh yeah, I wanted to find out about volunteering, or yeah, I was going to look at their website and make a donation. So when you can put this in their hands, they're less likely to forget how excited they were about your organization. Okay. That I think is it's the biggest thing about how you can help sheep. All right, one more I was going to show you. This one's from one of our SmartSprout members, Christy Wary from Illuminate India. Hers is very similar, give your talent, so volunteering basically. And what I like about how Christy does this is she doesn't just say volunteer with us, she says, are you good at graphic design, web design, social media, accounting, or grant writing? We could use your help. So basically she listed out a handful of things that she needed help with, which is awesome. Host a fundraiser, sponsor a child, be a social media ambassador, or donate. So she had some real specific things on there. I wanted to show you several different examples so that you could start thinking about what you want yours to look like. So there you go. Three real different ones. And yet they all are going to work. They're all going to be really helpful as you go speak to make sure that your presentation is getting the results you're looking for. Now, here's another thing you got to keep in mind. When you go speak and you give this out, you might have the experience that I've had this experience many times where I go speak and people are rushing up to me afterwards with like, oh my gosh, here's money, here's a donation. Can you come speak to my fill in the blank group? And I wind up with the names and email addresses of everybody in the room. So sometimes you're going to have that experience, and sometimes it's toned down quite a bit. Sometimes you're going to only have a small percentage of the room who afterwards hands you money, hands you their card, tells you they want to get involved. And then 2 weeks from now, or 2 months from now, or even 2 years from now, somebody pops up and says, I heard you speak a long time ago at that Rotary Club, and it really struck a note in my heart. That will happen. It has happened to me. Even to this day, sometimes I hear from people 2 and 3 years later after I speak. But it will happen for you too, that sometimes it takes those seeds a little while to germinate. So if you don't get immediately what you want that day or within 24 hours, it's okay. Just know that you have planted a lot of seeds and it might take a little while for them to germinate. And that's okay. Now, one more thing that I want you to be really particular about, and that is scooping up donor prospects. So you don't want to leave empty-handed if you can help it. So depending on the group, there's a couple of different things you can do to make sure that you leave with as many names and email addresses as possible. Now, you want to get permission from people before you add them to your list. Don't get the membership list from whatever group you're going to and automatically dump them all in your Constant Contact account or MailChimp. Don't do that. You want permission to add people. So what you could do, a couple different things you could do. You can have a basket that you pass around and you say, listen, if you want to find out more about how you can get involved, or if you want to get the latest updates on our work, drop your card in the basket and I'll make sure that you are among the first to hear when something really cool is happening at our organization. Now, did you hear what I just said? I basically said, give me your card and I'm going to add you to our email list so you get our newsletter. But I didn't say it that way. You're still saying, like, you're going to get the updates, you're going to hear what's going on, but you don't want to say, hey, drop your card in if you want to get on our newsletter list. Because trust me, nobody wants to join your newsletter list. Nobody wants to be on one more newsletter list. So if you reframe it a little bit, invite people to sign up so they can hear more, you'll get more names. Another way you can do it is pass around a sign-up sheet. So normally, if I'm doing a Rotary Club, I might go the way of the business cards because number one, it's easier. Business people almost always have cards with them. And number two, I don't have to try to read somebody's handwriting. If you pass around a sign-up sheet, a sign-up sheet, a lot of times I'll use that with like church groups and women's groups, garden clubs, things like that, because typically those people don't have business cards. So a sign-up sheet can be awesome, and it could literally be name and email address. And you can put at the top, so you can take just a piece of paper and at the top put, sign up to hear more about our work. And then put some columns, name and email. If you, I promise you, you're going to have one or two that you're not going to be able to read, and you're going to have to wind up guessing what in the world that letter is. Is that an N or an R? I'm not really sure. But sign-up sheets are good if you don't have anything else to do. What I typically do with sign-up sheets is I will start them around early in the presentation, and I might even say, there's a sign-up sheet going around. If you want to hear more about our organization's work, make sure you put your name and email on there. If it's a small group, you could do it at the end, and you might get more sign-ups at the end after people hear you talk. There's a reason why some churches pass the plate after the sermon to inspire people to give, right? So you can send that sign-up sheet around. Let's see. Christy asks, we created a connect card that people can take and put their information on and give back to us. Works well at events. Yes. Ask if they want more info on volunteering, donating, etc. Yes, that works. So Christy, so that's kind of like a, hey, stay in touch. And you could literally have a little card, pass them all around. That works too. That totally works. Something else I was going to tell you about this. What was it? Oh, follow up fast. So if you go out and speak, and whether you're collecting cards, you do the sign up sheet or whatever else, you need to try to email people immediately, like within 24 to 48 hours. So I would make sure that you have left yourself some time after your presentation to go back, load all that information up in whatever, Constant Contact or your donor tracking software, wherever, and send them an email like immediately, just really fast. And the email needs to say, oh my gosh, it was so nice to meet you at the Rotary Club. If you have any questions at all about our work, don't hesitate to call. Our next open house is blah, and we'd love for you to come. So you're kind of reiterating something that was on your how you can help sheet. So they might go, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. But what that does, by you emailing them immediately, if they were interested, it's going to remind them that they were interested, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, where's that sheet? I wanted to see more about what that organization is doing. It also shows them you are organized and on the ball. People are impressed. When you do something fast with information, they're impressed. And that sets the relationship off on the right foot. Definitely. The other thing that you could do if you're a little more sophisticated is to put an opt-in page on your website. So in other words, a page that says, and all it has on it is sign up here to hear more about the good work our organization is doing. And let's say it's draftgratitude.com/sign up. Then what you could do is tell people at the end of your talk, you can go, okay, everybody get your smartphone out and go to draftgratitude.com/sign up. And that's where you can join our family of supporters and hear more about what our organization is doing. And then right then they can put their name and email in. If you do something like that, the nice thing is you can set up autoresponders so that when they opt in, man, there's an email that goes out immediately and says, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so excited you decided to join our family. Here's what you can expect from us, blah, blah, blah. The other piece is the chances of typos are much smaller because if the person is putting their own name and email in, they're probably going to get it right. And it also eliminates you from having to go back and manually enter everything. So if you want to do an opt-in page on your website, that's a great way to use your technology. If you don't know how to do that, if you're using something like Constant Contact or MailChimp, there is a way to set up a form where that information automatically goes into those programs and it'll automatically generate the autoresponder. So that's all really easy to do. If you're using the right tool, it's a pretty easy thing to do. Okay, so that's about scooping up prospects because you want to make sure that you do that. Let's spend our last few minutes talking about speaking tips. I'll give you some of my ninja tips for going out to speak. Keep your energy high. So you don't want to go into a speaking gig hungry if you can help it. Although I get it and I used to be this way. If it was a lunch meeting, I was not able to eat food before I had to talk because I was going to probably throw up if I did. But I needed to maybe eat a couple hours before so that my stomach wasn't empty. It's easier to keep your energy up when you're not hungry. When your body is drained of fuel, that's a tough thing to do. Why do you need to keep your energy high? Because you're a much more engaging speaker when you do. When your energy is very low, you're going to tend to be like this, and you're really monotone, and it becomes difficult to listen to. Okay. I have found over the years, I'll do things like just do a couple of jumping jacks or jump in place, raise my arms up and down a couple of times before I go on stage. And what that does, it gets the blood moving through your body, it gets the energy moving through your body, and it just puts you in a better place to hit the stage and go like, hi. And that's a good thing. So you want to keep your energy high, really watch. I'll tell you that somebody told me this tip a long time ago, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. But when I go watch a video of myself, I really can see the difference between my energy when it's up and down. And the weird thing is that you'll think your energy is fine. And if you see a video of yourself, you're going to be like, oh, I sound like I'm half asleep. So you almost have to turn it up just a little bit. There are so many times I can't tell, like I even feel like it right now. I feel like I'm a little over the top with the energy, but then when I go back and watch a recording of myself, I'm like, no, it's fine. It's right where it needs to be. So just turn it up a little bit. You're going to feel like you're a little over the top, but you'll be just fine. And it's enough energy to keep people engaged. Make them laugh and make them cry. Be ready to tell the stories. And honestly, if you can tell them a joke or something that makes them laugh, you're going to earn so many points. It's not even funny. You'll keep people's attention, frankly, if you can make them laugh or make them cry. For those of you who have been to the Inspired Fundraising Retreat, you know that that's how I roll in a live presentation. I put jokes in on purpose. Like I have my canned jokes that I use on certain topics when I'm teaching. I don't even have to think about it anymore. The jokes are just there. But make them laugh, make them cry. Tell them a story that really moves their heart. because the emotion will help them remember that you were a good speaker and that was a great program, and they want to get more involved. And really, that's what you're looking for. You just want to remember, you want them to remember the whole thing in a positive light so that they want to get more involved. Okay, so this might be the biggest tip of them all, and that is to stay on time and actually end early if you can. If you go over, you're going to lose people, especially at a Rotary Club. A lot of those clubs, they start at noon and they are done at 1, and by 12:59, people are starting to get up to leave. You want to get done before everybody's ready to leave. They'll appreciate that. So you have to stay on time, whether you have keep your cell phone close by or there's a clock on the wall, whatever. You got to really watch the time so that you don't go over. It's easy to do. It's really easy to get like really involved in your story, or you're in the middle of talking about this thing and then you think about something else you want to share. That's why practice is so good. Practice, 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 and you'll get better at it. And pretty soon you'll be known around town as a really awesome speaker and everybody wants you to come out. Okay, that was a lot of information today. You've got the handouts. You're going to have access to the recording. If there's stuff you want to work on and throw in the Facebook group, I would be happy to look at it for you. If there's anything you got questions about, talk about. We've got a coaching zone coming up. When is that? Coming up here not too terribly long. Take advantage of all of that. So, because I'm telling you, if you can go out and speak, you're going to get more support. You're going to get more donors, you're going to get more volunteers, you're going to get more people on your list, and these are all good things when you're building your organization. Okay, here's what's coming next. Whoops, if I can get it to come right. We initially had a different session scheduled for June 21st. I've had to readjust some things. So what's coming in 2 weeks on the 21st is starting and growing a monthly giving program. So for those of you who are interested in lining up people to give monthly to your organization, I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to give you some really good resources and some templates and things to use. You're going to love, love, love that webinar. So mark your calendar for the 21st of June. Join us for that one. Then in July, we have a couple of really cool things coming up. Greg Adkins is going to come talk with us about raising awareness online using social media. We'll talk a little bit about Google Ads, Google Grants. We'll talk about all kinds of interesting things in the world of online marketing. So Greg will join us for that. All right. Look at that. I ended early. I told you that was a good thing to do. I've got 3:58 on the official clock. Does anybody have questions before we go? If you have a question, this is a good time to ask it. Catherine has a really good question. Do you have to join the meetup group before you can ask to speak? Not necessarily. What you want to do is figure out who the contact person is on that meetup group and just reach out to them. Reach out to them and say, hey, I'm Catherine, and I'm with the XYZ group or the ABC nonprofit. I'm looking for places to come talk about the work we do and raise awareness. Is that something that would be of interest to your group? So you can reach out to them and ask them if that's okay. But no, you don't have to join the group. I mean, just like you don't have to join the Rotary Club to be able to go speak there. One other thing that I didn't mention that you can do, Dawn had this on her one sheet where she had a couple of testimonials. So if you go out and speak to one Rotary Club and they say, oh, that was great, ask the president of the club to write you a testimonial, because then you can use that on your one sheet, and that can make it easier for you to get into the next group. Joanne, thank you so much. Joanne says that I help take the fear out of reaching out to new audiences. You are so welcome. That's my goal. I'm telling you, I was terrified when I first started doing these presentations, and the more I did them, the better I got, the more results I saw, and I'm really convinced this is such a good way for you to go find new people. It's a great use of your time because it's not going to cost you much, if anything. And there's so many groups out there that looking for people like you to come present. All right, you guys, I'm going to be really mindful of your time. I see that it is 4 o'clock straight up. So let me just say thank you for being here today. I appreciate your presence and your interaction. Thank you for your good questions. Go take advantage of this, rock your talk, and then come back and tell me how it went. I will see you next time here for Project SmartSprout. Bye, everybody.